Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more buckshot testing, and today we've got another new choke combo to try out, and I'm really curious to see if this one's going to give us any kind of better performance with these type of shells. They've struggled quite a bit in our testing, but this choke, in 12 gauge at least, has been a very solid performer. So I'm curious to see if it can actually help our results out any and improve our pattern results, because if it can, then we know that it's probably worth picking up if you're somebody that runs combos like this. But we'll start off with the shells we're going to be running, that being some of the Federal Power-Shok 20 gauge buckshot loads. These ones in particular are the 20 gauge 2 3/4 inch 20 pellet load of 3 buck, moving about 1200 feet per second. Overall, 20 gauge and buckshot in general pretty well no matter what brand or model of shell, whether it be Power-Shok, Super X, copper plated, anything like that. Usually they are pretty poor in the pattern performance department. We have yet to really get anything that I really like and would confidently hunt with, in my personal opinion. So we'll see if today's new choke combo can help us out any with these, since these are an unplated pellet with no wad. They're just a buffered load of buckshot. We'll see what happens. As for the shotgun we're going to be running them in, I brought out my Stevens 301 20 gauge. It does have a Nikon scope on top from where we've been doing some slug testing recently, but that'll be perfectly fine for today's test. It's got a 26-inch barrel on it, but for the new choke I picked up, that is one of these, a Kicks Buck Kicker full choke. A lot of you guys have wanted to see one of these buck kickers in 20 gauge, and I'm definitely curious to see what it can do as well. The 12 gauge version tends to be a pretty nice performing choke, so we'll see if it helps these 20 gauge ones out any. I believe the constriction claim for these is either 600 or 605. My particular choke right here measures at 604 constriction, for those curious. So very similar to my modified choke, which I believe is a 600 in this particular gun. So we'll see what happens, if it can actually control these shells a little bit and give us a nice pattern, or if it's still just kind of borderline disappointing. But as for today's test, everything is set up the same as usual. I've got a big sheet of paper at 40 yards, the chrono so we can get our velocity, and the template so we can lay up over our results. Just because we've seen a bunch of poor 20 gauge performance from buckshot in the past doesn't mean I'm going to hamper them at all. It's still going to be the same 40-yard distance we typically do, and we're going to see if this combo can actually help it out any, if this Kicks choke is actually capable of doing that anyway. So let's get you guys a view of that target. We'll take our shot and just see what we're able to get from this combo. Alright, that shell gave us 1183 through the chrono. Boss claim is 1200. So from our 26-inch barrel, we were just a little bit under that claim. They probably tested it through a 28-inch or something like that to get that number. So it does make sense. That's a perfectly fine velocity for these shells. But did that Kicks Buck Kicker actually help us out any in the pattern department? Let's go check it out and see what we got. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40-yard paper, and yet again, kind of mediocre results at best. We did have all 20 pellets on the paper, and I did measure. It is a 29-inch wide by 22-inch tall pattern, so really kind of just a little bit of shot all over the place yet again. Is this a slight improvement over what we saw with these through some flush factory chokes? I do think it is on the overall pattern size, but as far as holding an even spread or anything like that, I don't think it really helped us much. There's 3 up here at the top. There's another hot little clump down here to the left of the white dot with some little stringy stuff down here at the bottom, and it's just kind of all over the place. There's kind of nothing right at the top of that white dot. So is it a good pattern? I don't think so. Is it a horrible pattern? I don't think it really is as well. I think it is a marginal pattern. It's okay. It's not the worst we've seen, but yet again, 20 gauge buckshot isn't anything great. I do think if more companies started having an actual wad in their 20 gauge buckshot loads, it would make a drastic difference, because it just seems like when buckshot loads don't have a wad, the patterns can kind of start to do whatever they want. But let's throw a few templates up and see how it actually looks. So we'll start off here with our 10-inch circle. If we put it in the middle of our pattern, we have one, and I guess if the wind would stop blowing my template, we kind of maybe have two down there in the bottom right corner. So overall, really not a super great core area. And it would probably be about the same no matter where we moved it. Obviously, if we took it all the way up to the edge, we would have 3 or 4 in it up there at the top or something like that. But it's kind of just a more broad and a little bit splotchy pattern all over the place. So the core, yet again for 20 gauge, isn't anything great, but it doesn't tell the full story. So let's throw some actual animal templates up and see how it would look on a hunting scenario. So next up, we have a deer template. If we line it up with where our point of aim would have been, you definitely would have covered the deer in pellets. There's no question about that. Would that be a dead deer at 40 yards? Yeah, it probably would be. But would you have hit probably just about everything in the deer as well? Yeah, most likely so. You've got a couple in the lungs and heart area, several of them up through the shoulder, and a number more of them way far back towards the gut area. So at 40 yards, good enough to hunt deer with it? Sure. Would I do it? Probably not. Now, for somebody that might be doing a deer drive or something of that nature, that might be the kind of pattern you're looking for. A little more leeway like that. But even if it is a more broad pattern, it's not a super even pattern either. You kind of just got pellets all over the place more than anything else. So maybe some very slight improvement over just stock chokes, but still, it's not something I would definitely go out and search for, that's for sure. But we'll throw the hog template up. It'll give us an idea on a little smaller animal and some predators as well. I think it's going to be pretty well the same story, but we'll look at it anyway. So here is that hog template, and it is, yet again, pretty well the same story. You would have covered him in pellets. So would it have done the job? Probably so. Is it something that I would want to use? Probably not. For those of you predator hunters, a coyote would be just a little bit smaller body size than what this hog is. So it technically would be good enough to 40 for those guys as well. But even if it is a little more broad of a pattern, you might prefer that for moving coyotes or something. Yet again, it's still not super even. So if you got a coyote facing you and the center of his chest and base of his neck is right above that white dot, guess what? You might have hit him in the leg with one pellet. So that really isn't anything overly spectacular. And that's kind of been the story all along, yet again, for 20 gauge buckshot. If you get the right choke, you can find a little bit of improvement where it is marginally usable, but a lot of times it's probably just not something you're really going to look into for hunting scenarios and stuff like that. Obviously, if you had this combo at 7 or 10 yards or whatever inside of your house for home defense scenario, yeah, it would be very effective, no doubt about that. You're going to have a nice tight pattern at that close of a range. But for hunting purposes, it's not anything overly impressive. I was definitely hoping for better, that's for sure. Maybe we can try a few different loads through that kicks choke and we might get better results. But for now, kind of the same story, unfortunately, for 20 gauge buckshot. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that performance right there? Unfortunately, I think it's another little bit of a disappointment. I had better hopes for that combo, or at least that choke anyway, but this is the first test we've done with it, and it's worth at least trying a few different loads through it and seeing what we can come up with. Maybe a copper-plated shell might be better, maybe the Super X stuff from Winchester might be better. I don't know. We've got 2-buck and 3-buck and stuff like that, so maybe some other combo of shot size might work better. As for this performance, it's kind of the same story yet again, just marginal for 20 gauge buckshot. A typical 12 gauge Federal Power-Shok through a standard mod or full choke in a 12 gauge would be way better than that pattern, that's for sure. So 20 gauge just kind of suffers a little bit, I think, in the quality department. If they had wads in them, I think it would make a pretty noticeable difference, but a lot of them just don't for whatever reason. But leave all your thoughts down below. Is that about what you expected to see? Were you a little surprised one way or the other? Have you tested any of these Power-Shok 20 gauge buckshot loads or a Kicks buck kicker in 20 gauge? And if so, what kind of results have you seen? Is that a pattern that you would ever use in a hunting scenario? Or is it just kind of too broad and a little splotchy for you? And what other shells and choke combos do you want to see when it comes to 20 gauge buckshot? Let me know all that down below. But with that being said, I've got some more testing to get done for you guys, so I'm going to get back to it. As always, we have the channel Instagram as well as the mailbox where you can send stuff if you'd like. All that information will be in the description if you're interested in it, but I'm going to get back to it, so I'll see y'all in the next one.